My name is Clarissa Rizol. My role in this project, I think, is like as a consultant in the sense of some of the traditional songs. I mean, Preston didn't really say what my role was. He just basically asked me to be here because of the songs, traditional songs I've known for years, for what, over 40 years. And also, you know, spoken word, you know, poetry, that kind of thing.
She did form a lot of the project, you know, in the direction that it went through to where we are now. Like Clarissa put a lot of, you know, the concepts and, you know, the way we interact as a group. You know, she guided a lot of that. You know, in the studio sessions when I came into it were totally unlike other studio sessions I've gone into. You know, there was so much discussions and getting to know everybody else at such a deep level,
right?
You know,
right.
And it's like there was, you know, like sage burning during the sessions. There was, you know, deep meal conversations. You know,
right,
Clarissa would
right.
be weaving at some of the sessions.
Right.
You know,
she was. That was the thing that she was always trying to keep busy with. And she goes, "This is the way that it used to be in our culture." You know, there'd be having a ceremony, and there's be people in the back, and they would be weaving. So her hands were always moving, and so for us, it was kind of like, oh, it was cool to see her working on this thing, and Bernie was fascinated with that.
It was such high energy, and wonderful to see the interactions and the improv that was going on.
Preston said, "Hey, what do you have a song or something you want to, you know?" And I don't even think we had the music or anything. It was just like, okay, let's try. How about this? It's kind of cool because, you know, once, you know, just kind of bust out with a song like that, and from my perspective, then I see guitars, bass, drums, keyboards, everyone just kind of like go into their own space of you know, just like listening, and then just like you know, figuring it out, and then how everything comes together as I just keep singing the song, you know, and it's like, you know, just repetitive, just singing the song, you know, and then, you know, Preston just starts hearing it, you know, everybody just starts kind of going into their whoever and wherever they go to, and starts creating this piece.
On that one, on that song, musically, it sounds like something that would be like bumping out of a lowrider in California. Like it sounds like a war song or something. So it almost like makes me think of like, okay, yeah, this is a song of like a Tlingit guy whose family got relocated by the BIA from Alaska to LA during the 70s, and this is this kid growing up, you know, with the Tlingit music at home, but then he's like rolling out in a lowrider after high school. So again, like I love how just the journey that the songs take, and you know, that wasn't where that song was consciously going, but it's like I definitely see that vision.
folklore songs like that happen too, that way too. It's like with especially with the traditional songs, when you have the verse on there, it's like we just start singing it, and then all the musicians, just went into like their own zone.
After they've already been mixed. This is one of those ones where we didn't know what the song really was about until after it had been mixed. And I think at that point, all of a sudden I was like, okay, there's something here. This sounds like something, but I don't know what it is. And then I heard the story about the Douglas village up in Alaska, Tlingit village.
Well, the village was on a pretty prominent site in Douglas, Alaska. And Douglas, at one time, used to be like the most populated area in the whole United States because of the gold mine that was there. Douglas, Alaska, the small bit of island, during the gold mining days, there used to be one of the most populated areas in the whole United States.
Just the entire village mysteriously burned to the ground. Like somebody totally, went and burned down this entire Tlingit village on purpose. And this wasn't like something that happened like 100 years ago. This is something that happened like in our parents' generation. So when I heard that story, I was like, that story sounds like that song sounds. So that piece was actually, the foundation tracks were done in the first session, which I was not at. And that was kind of improvised, with Preston and Bernie and Skerik and Stanton. It's kind of an improv piece. When we got to the overdub stage, it kind of fell to me to do some overdub pieces on there. And Skerik actually had this crazy pedal called a Schumann PLL. It's barely a pedal. It's huge, and it's like this rat's nest of wiring, and it has something to do with technology from old telephones. And basically it kind of converts this, whatever signal you put into it, it kind of turns it into a synth signal in addition to the audio signal going through it. So Skerik had me play through that, and the guitar just started sounding like it was on fire. Signal's breaking up, it's warping back upon itself, and that was one of those songs where I transcribed Bernie's organ solo or synth solo. So actually in the original version, a lot of what the guitar is doing is note for note what Bernie's doing on the synth.
I remember when because we were making so much music in a furious clip, so we just said, well, Clarissa, you have something you can do, a spoken word piece, and because she'd heard Gene do a couple of them. This was really early on, and she said, well, if you want that kind of spoken word and story, I said, I've got a lot of that, It's like, well, go for it, bring it on out, and so the theme behind that is they forgot they survived. It's kind of like talking about the way Raab kind of extrapolated from that was sort of like intergenerational trauma that kind of forces us or causes us to forget our own identity, and forget that we are actually here now, and we're sort of through several generations of trauma, and that became the theme of the album.
Yeah, and you can look at it from different perspectives. You can say they forgot they survived. Because being a victim keeps you in a lower position. Being a survivor comes from a position of strength and empowerment. And so much that's pushed on a lot, especially on like Native youth, is that you're a victim and you're headed for this bad life, and bad things are going to happen to you, and being on the Reds, it's just this sad place to be, and nothing positive is gonna happen. This defeated mentality that's pushed on Native youth. When the reality is we've survived. And also the fact that, non-natives forget that we survived. It's like you go to any like social media post, like in the Seattle Times, any post that has to do with Indian country, there's all kind of negativity and, ignorant comments and, people having this perspective that, Indian country is defeated and, not surviving, that, internally we need to remember we survived, and we need them to know that we survived. So there's a lot of different ways that you could approach that concept that Clarissa put into that piece.
Just the title of it, just that kind of puts you, the twist on how Clarissa sees things.
And that was musically, like, we didn't do anything before we started playing that. Like, that was literally one of those pieces where none of us discussed what we were about to play. And we just went out there. Clarissa was in the room, and just, I think Stanton or Bernie just started it off, and maybe we knew what key it was, maybe we didn't. And there was, like, no discussion about what any of us were about to do.
Actually, there's a really funny moment, like, because it starts off with this sax intro. Like,
oh yeah. And then you can hear Clarissa chuckle. She's like, what the heck? And then she launches into her story, and like her cadence about the story, is such a matter of fact tone. It's sort of like like telling it like it is. And there's kind of self-deprecation, there's disparaging things, the way that she puts it, fragments of the dangling knowledge, and we wove it together and made something of it, and and on and on. I mean, it was an incredibly powerful piece, I think. Just really glad we got that one.
Our sky lay itself upon the earth, lips pressed to the clouds, a last roar of breath. A gray sun shone a pale face, one so bold, looking down upon a vanishing race. Not to be revered, no, not to be revered. Somewhere they forgot, we forgot,
We survived. We forgot we survived, and yes, we did survive. We are a reminder that our ancestors too thrived. Believing the good they die young, we would join the numbers in the canoe, going across to the beautiful island, sailing to avoid an icon of an ancient face. Dragged hearts across the sandy beach. Yep, we dragged our hearts across that sandy beach, and our footprints disappeared. Riding tides, we played ball without a reach. That reach to a familiar goal. The language of many singers sing into one. Pulling a heavy heart up a mountain, we sang to the top, yes. And they sang, we still sing at the top. And we let go with a fair dose of dignity. Mama once said, funny how we are given an approximate time of 9 months, waiting to be born. Yet we never know when we're gonna die. Our sky lay itself upon the earth, lips pressed to the clouds, a last roar of breath.
Our whole culture was all about conveying knowledge by way of storytelling. It was oral history. You did your story by way of documenting it on an art piece, whether it was a woven robe or a sewn robe or a carving, a totem pole or a bowl or dish, whatever. Our language was written in our art, and with that always came the story. Okay, so the artist, was the keeper, the person who portrayed the stories in a visual form. Then there was the story keeper, the person who actually knew the history. Artists also knew the history too in order to create the art piece, okay? So sometimes the artist was the storyteller as well. And to this day, that's how it works. The artist is the storyteller. And then what happens is you had a song that went with it, okay? So it's a holistic approach to in the keeping of this information. So there was the art, there was the story, okay, that was in the art, there was the song, and then there's the dance. So it's a holistic approach. There's the visual, the audio, and the physical. Okay, so that's how we retained our information. We didn't have books. It was all in visual and audio and physical terms.
Last winter, some of our men went out in a canoe. The riptide got them. They capsized. All their bundles of furs, rich treasures of the Tlingit, gifts from the animal people, floated away and were lost. Now look, from far away, a strange sight is coming towards us. My auntie is standing over there, and she is saying, "It is Raven, returning to us at last. It is Raven, with its feathers white again, as they were in the beginning." But the thing is coming closer, flying, winging over the sea waves, and we look again, and the old woman says, "No, it is not Raven after all. It is something else." We do not know what we are seeing. We are afraid to look on it with our eyes, but it just keeps coming closer. We can't take our eyes off of it. That man, who is the village watchman, standing on top of the ceremonial house, and he watches, and he says, "It is a boat, like our canoes, only much, much bigger, and driven by the wind. It is carrying many men. Watch them climbing the masts of that boat, like squirrels on our great spruce trees. Watch them, watching us. White men they are. Men with skin that is white, with hair of many colors. So many of them strangers. We are afraid. Our people are afraid, but we watch the white sails come closer and closer. And the old woman say, they have found our treasures, the furs that floated away, and now they have come looking for us. And this land that is so rich and has given us everything, now they want it too. The young men are running for their weapons, but grandfather says no fighting, not yet. We do not want to fight the strangers, not unless we have to. Not unless we have to. We stand on the shores and we wait. My brother sings a song, and we gather our courage from the song. Let our voices ring out over our grandfather's land, and then no matter what the white sails brings, and no matter the changes that come to our world, we will still be part of it, our world, and we will be alive. Our stories and our ways. And that white sail will not be Raven, but maybe Raven has never left us. Maybe. He is still right here.
Yeah, the White Sails was, that was actually from the very first recording session, which was I believe it was, and it was a dirge that Stanton was playing. That's Gene's brilliance. I mean, he can sometimes just pull the right story into a musical thing that we've done, and he just kind of launches right into it. And he's got such a theatrical approach to the way that he does storytelling that it just fit.
And just sonically, it sounds really liquidy, because it's got the Bernie playing the B3 through the Leslie, which adds that liquid sound. And when I overdubbed the guitar part, Randall had me going through the Leslie on that too. So it definitely has, sonically it matches the story. Like, that song was not White Sails.
Right.
When it started, it didn't reveal itself as being White Sails until the very end, and then it's like, oh, that's what that song is about. The Spirit Reflected in the Moon, that was from the first session that I wasn't at. So yeah, that one was awesome. That's one where like Bernie just improv'd it, just layers of synth stuff, and it almost has like a Jay Dilla influence on that one, because it starts off and it's like in 12/8, and then all of a sudden it kicks over into 4/4. That was one of those overdub sessions where Randall had got that box from Earthquaker Devices. Basically, Earthquaker Devices sent him this crate of like their pedal line. It was this giant box,
right.
And we were just like pulling pedals out of it. Like, try this one, see what this one does. Try this one. And yeah, I think at one point it was a guitar into like one of their afterneath pedals, one of their like reverb / delay pedals, and then that got fed into a Leslie. So it was just like petals like all in order that you would not normally put them in. Like, yeah, there was some like fun tones on that because of like those petals all showing up and just not knowing what was what and just like experimenting. Yeah, there was like the arpanoid and like the rainbow machine and the Fuzzmaster General and all the dispatch pedals. Yeah, you know it's going to be a fun session when just like there's a crate of pedals that you've never played through before and you're just pulling them out of the box and like, try this.
Stillness.
That specific one, it's me bringing like 3 different pieces and cutting them up and then bringing them all together.
I was wondering, did you ever notice when you were telling the stories? Could you hear Bernie kind of responding to the words you were saying?
Absolutely. And oftentimes when Bernie was playing, sometimes my focus is totally on Bernie, you know, and just thinking about, sure, it's like on the rhythm and the music and stuff like that, but Bernie would just like would in his way just vocalize it, or even like a call and response in that way with his keyboards.
They say she heard things at Nalag Yogavik, the place where you go to listen. She would sit alone in stillness, the wind across the tundra. The little waves lapping on the shore told her secrets. Birds passing overhead spoke to her in strange tongues. They listened, and she heard. But she rarely spoke of these things. She did not question them. This is the way it is for one who listens. She spent many days and nights alone, poised with the deep patience of the hunter, her ears and her body attuned to everything around her. Before the wind and the great sea, she took for herself the discipline always to listen. She listened for the sound like drums of the earth stirring in ancient sleep. She listened for the sound like stone rain as rivers of caribou flooded the great plains. She listened in autumn for the echo of the call of the last great swan. She understood the languages of the birds in time. She learned the quiet words of the plants. Closing her eyes, she heard small voices whispering, I am Akvik. I am River Willow. I am here. I am Asiak. I am Blueberry. I am here. The wind brought to her the voices of her ancestors, the old ones, who taught her that true wisdom lives far from humankind, deep in the great loneliness. As she traveled, she listened to the voices of the land, voices speaking the names of each place, carrying the memories of those who lived here now and those who have gone. As she listened, she came to hear the breath of each place. How the snow falls here, how the ice melts, how, when everything is still, the air breathes. The drums of her ears throbbed with the heartbeat of this place, a particular rhythm that can be heard nowhere else. Often she remembered the teachings of the old shaman who spoke of Salam Inua, the inhabited spirit, the voice of the universe. Salam Inua speaks not through ordinary words, but through fire and ice, sunshine and calm seas, the howling of wolves and the innocence of children who understand nothing. In her mind, she heard the words of the shaman who said of Salam Inua, all we know is that it has a gentle voice like a woman, a voice so fine and gentle that even children cannot be afraid. The heart of winter, she is listening. Darkness envelops her, heavy, luminous with aurora. The mountains in silhouette stand silent. There is no wind. The frozen air is transparent, smooth and brittle. It rings like a knife blade against bone. The sounds of her breath as it freezes is a soft murmuring like cloth on cloth. The muffled wind beats. The muffled wing beats of the snowy owl rise and fall, reverberating down long corridors of dream deep into the earth. She stands motionless, listening to the resonant stillness. Then slowly, she draws a new breath, in a voice not her own, yet somehow strangely familiar. She begins to sing.
When jamming with Bernie, I was very aware of what he was doing, where he was going, or the energy. You know, a lot of it was the energy that he brought to the piece, you know, and into the space. Not just the piece itself, but Bernie brought this energy into the space. Because it's one of those things too, is like Bernie, not only with his huge experience of who he was and his presence, but his presence of what he brought into the space was all the combinations of everything that he's done in his life. Does that make sense? Because everything was like he was going to bring everything, you know, everything is like, it seemed like he's just recycling everything that he'd done, you know, and just bringing it.
When we played live, the couple times that we did play at the Royal Room, I mean, that again was very organic and more like, just visual nods and, wink and, okay, go for it.
Yeah, and just feel it out and listen.
Yeah.
And just pay attention to what other people are doing, and the arrangements. Even today, our arrangements aren't like, okay, there's 4 bars of this, there's 4 bars of that. It's pretty, organic, go with the flow and eye contact and listen for certain musical cues, so, and again, Bernie was the master of that, he almost instinctively, you didn't need to tell him when a change was coming, like somehow, he was so tuned in with, that unspoken connection that he could almost tell when you were going to change something before you even do it, and he never would play things the same way twice. And that was one of the things that was really interesting working with him, is even if there was like a specific melody, he would, lay into it a different way, and the notes would fall in different timing. It'd be the same notes, but it wouldn't be played, the same way more than once. And that was really cool in some ways. In other ways that was challenging. Like if I had to overdub, doubling a keyboard part that Bernie was playing, like on Wolf's song on the second record, that was the hardest overdub session I've ever done, because the melody line, like the clavinet part on that, it's not a complicated melody, but within those notes there's like such an infinite amount of ways that you could phrase it or have the notes timing fall differently, that was like hard. Like when Randall was like, yeah, just double what he's doing. Think, okay, which way is Bernie gonna phrase that melody line this time?
Right.
And that, you think it's not that complicated of a part until you have to double it. start to learn some of the ways that, you know, Bernie would phrase his melodies and some of the signature pauses he would take. But yeah, it was, never the same way twice. And that's, you know, what makes improvisation what it is.
Yeah, I think Skerik has a lot to say about that. You know, he's a true improviser.
Holistically, naturally, and just completely and brilliantly humor with virtuosity, and it resonates with everyone. That's the real connection with music. There's so many people that just take themselves so seriously playing on stage, and it's just not fun to watch or be a part of. But when Bernie is playing some incredible organ solo in front of 5,000 or people or 50,000 people or 500 people, all of a sudden he's going into the Mighty Mouse theme TV show, cartoon theme song or whatever, and then he's quoting some Bach piece, and then he's playing some beautiful gospel or jazz funky thing. I mean, just his solos, just those little brief solos he would take on whatever keyboard he had were just so engaging. It's just an invaluable lesson on how to be a musician and how to bring people together.
It's well known Bernie was, just considered himself a conduit for music and the things that just came through him, and his whole concept of the woo concept, the Wizard of Woo he was referred to as, and that's sort of like bringing people together through music, and that was reflective in the name Khu.éex, because that's it's calling people together, a gathering, a doing. Everything that he played was always fresh, and in fact, I remember speaking with Judy, Bernie's wife at the time, said, "I'll make sure that we get some recordings to him so he knows kind of what's coming and like that." And she goes, "It's not really necessary." And let me give you an example. Bernie likes to hit it and quit it. Okay, so I'll tell you how that works. There was a band that really wanted Bernie on a track. They sent him the track, but he didn't listen to it. And he shows up in the studio, and they're playing it. They're running through the song, and he's playing, and then they stop and they said, "Well, that sounded really good. Let's record it just the way you played it." He goes, "What? You weren't recording it?" Because he didn't play, and he never played it the same way twice. I mean, he would hear some other syncopation, or he would hear some other chord voicing or something that would be, and so each time it was if he had never heard it before. but he was doing whatever he was doing was always incredible. You were working on something for Sea Alaska. You were trying to make a chant, kind of like you were talking about the Maori, the Maori chants, and they were how could you make this beat, and you could and it turned into kind of a rap, and then that's when we kind of morphed it into, kind of a rap tune, hip hop type feel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because you're really rhythmic with your.
Sock docking tana. Yeah.
Right.
And it was like that kind of Maori feel to it, and that the haka, and then it developed into that. Yeah.
Right. And then Skerik's crazy sax tone at the beginning. I love the just the atmosphere at the beginning of that song is so weird. It almost sounds like there's saxophone coming from the sewer.
Gunalchéesh, Weha Chasegu, Gunalchéesh, Weha Asquani, Gunalchéesh, Westa Kat, Gunalchéesh, Weha Hini, and Gunalchéesh, Westa Kat, and Gunalchéesh, Weha Shiki, Gunalchéesh, Weha Atechi, and Gunalchéesh, Weha Tundatani, Gunalchéesh, Weha Atwasku, Gunalchéesh, Weha Sini, Gunalchéesh.
It's really all Skerik's electronic stuff.
Actually, I don't.
It's
It's a kind of funny backstory about that song, and I don't know if you remember that, but you helped me work on some music for a short documentary that was being made by the Seattle Art Museum. I had a show there in 2003. We went down and worked with Wayne Horvitz, remember? The keyboard player. And we went to the recording studio, and we did a version of that song. And that's when you told me that, that Maori chant kind of thing. And then I came up with that, the tempo and the rhythm, is when I came up with that bass line. So it was kind of revisited when we did this recording session.
Gunalchéesh, with the cut at Gunalchéesh, ha'ing inasti, Gunalchéesh, with the cut at Gunalchéesh, hashagain yahas, Gunalchéesh, hashuka has, Gunalchéesh, ha shagun has, Gunalchéesh, we ha tundatani, Gunalchéesh, we ha tutlaani, Gunalchéesh, we ha ani. Gunalchéesh, we ha hini. Gunalchéesh, we ha kustiyi.